Alright, I'm going to show you how to server hop in Siege. This is as of the Steel Wave update. Stop asking me this shit. Here's the link. Just watch the fucking video. So if you remember how to do it last season, it's almost exactly the same. They just randomly decided to change it for Steel Wave. I have no idea why. But essentially, go into your Documents folder. And then in your Documents folder, you'll find a plate. Go into the My Games folder. And then you'll find a Rainbow Six Siege. And then there'll be this folder with an epic string of random gibberish. Inside you'll find gamesettings.ini, which is just a file that stores all of your game settings. Open it with Notepad, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom. There'll be a section with a list of all the server names, and then the third from the last line that says data center hint equals. You'll want to put playfab / and then the name of the server from the list above. And the server hints are just, they tell you pretty much the geographic location of the server. So this is the same as last season, except you gotta add playfab /. I have no idea why, don't at me. Shout out to the person who figured that crap out though. Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, now on to the fun part, which is make a tier list of all of these servers. So I got all my tiers, and then dead servers are just servers where I could not find a game in copper to throw in, so you just can't even use these servers. So I'll go ahead and start with the dead servers, South Africa North, and both of the Australia servers. I couldn't even connect to Australia Southeast, so I don't know what's up with that one. That server might have been deleted. South Africa North and Australia East were both the same story, where I was able to connect, but I could drive any time of day I wanted in either of those locations, and it wouldn't matter. I would sit in the queue for a whole hour, and I know on South Africa I really particularly wanted to see what was happening on the South Africa copper scene, but I tried about 7 or 8 times and essentially just wasted my time sitting in queue. Couldn't find a game. So would not, these are obviously all dead, wouldn't recommend. The Asian servers are almost all the same. Very few people speak English. Something I thought was funny though is they do understand Ching Chong Bing Bong. If you say that to them, they might get a little bit upset. But I obviously have no idea what they're saying about me because I don't speak a lick of any Asian language. So it was even worse than throwing on like a server where they speak European languages, because I at least understand some of that. But, Japan West had a handful more English speakers than the other ones did. For some reason, whenever I played on them, within a couple of games, I'd run into a scenario where the enemy team does essentially nothing all game. I don't know what's happened with that. I can't tell if they're throwing it or not. It seems very unironic what they're doing, but it's either hecked with throwers or I just had really bad luck. So basically, there'd be games where the whole enemy team would have 3 frags all game, and 2 of them were against me, which basically don't count because they helped my team regularly. So they had 1 frag all game, and that's just a game that I can't lose when I'm solo. So I would put all of them in the F tier, except for Japan, because in Japan there's a few more people speaking English. So that one's okay. That one's a tad better, I guess. West Europe is my favorite by far. Most hilarious. I put East in parentheses because West is a bit of a misnomer. When you actually get on the server, you'll see a bunch of Turkish and Russian people on there, and it's like, that's not West Europe. It's definitely East Europe. But trolling those people is really fun. You see some Turks, you can say salam, and then start fucking with them, and they'll be like, they don't get it. They're like, what the heck, man? He said salam. We are brothers now. Just kidding. And trolling Russians is easy too. So they get really offended when you talk about their mom. So if you say something like "go cry to your babushka," they probably won't. They'll understand what you're saying, and they'll get offended because they take their family very seriously. Yo mama jokes are actually offensive over there, which I don't understand, but it's definitely funny to watch the reactions from that shit. The only issue with this server is there's a tad more throwers than some of the other servers I'm going to talk about, but it doesn't matter because the trolling over here is so good. If you're playing the abandoned game, like I do, and you would rather leave than take a win, and your next ban's going to be long, I would recommend not going to this one because there is throwers, but it's still amazing. If your next abandon's only going to be 30 minutes or an hour, I would go over here for sure. North Europe's not quite as good, but it's definitely good. I'm not sure, it probably has roughly the same amount of throwers as West Europe. I have less hours on it than I do on West Europe. I have a lot of hours on West Europe. But North Europe is pretty good too. North Europe has more of the West Europe people, British, French, German, etc. Drop a wee baguette in the voice chat, make fun of some French people. That's a good time. I would recommend this server, but not nearly as much as I would recommend West Europe. Right, the next one is Brazil South. Brazil South is also A tier, but not because of its trolling being as good as North Europe. Brazil South is A tier because no one's throwing. No one is throwing in Brazil South, dude. I ran into like 3 or 4 people, and it's probably my #2 server behind West Europe, so I have a lot of hours on that one as well, and I ran into 3 or 4 people. And they all weren't very good at throwing because they haven't seen good throwing because they're not on a throwing server. They're on a server that's almost devoid of throwers. So this is a good one to go to if your next abandonment penalty is going to be probably longer than 2 hours. I would just go to this one. This one's a safe bet, basically. Next one, Central US and South Central US are almost the same. Central US has a lot of throwers on it. Not a lot, just more than some of the other ones. I wouldn't really recommend going to that one for real. It's still better than the Asian servers or the dead servers, but not really worth the time. And South Central is a little bit better, has less throwers and more Mexicans, which is funny. So I put that one in the B, but you know, it's okay. You might go there just a couple of times just to see what it's like. But and then West US also going in the B tier. West US is okay to throw on. West US also has its fair share of throwers. That's a common theme with all the US servers. US is just where the throwing's happening. The only thing that makes the US servers better for throwing than any of the other servers is the fact that everyone is from the same culture as me, basically. They speak the same language and understand the same memes. So that's the only reason I wouldn't like lump them in some of the lower tiers, because you can troll on them essentially. East US is terrible. East US is my home server. It's the one where I have the lowest ping. It's the one I default to. It is the worst US server by far. It's so fucked with throwers. You'll see a thrower, at least one, every match. You probably average 1.5 throwers every match, and occasionally you run into just big ass wads of them. You'll have games where your team will have 4 throwers, the enemy team will have 4 throwers, and none of them were queued with each other. They just all happened to queue at the same time. There was just more throwers online than there was people who were trying. So in that regard, it is funny, and they do speak English. So I'm gonna put them here. Nah, they're better than Japan West. I'm gonna demote Japan West. So yeah, there you go. East US is in the D tier. Unless you want to see other throwers. If you're trying to rank up and you're in copper for some fucking reason, East US probably the best one to go to, but if you're trying to throw, it's pretty fucking annoying. So yeah, there's the list. Again, S tier, West Europe, parentheses, East Europe. Very good. Easy to be racist. People take that shit too seriously, and there's not a whole lot of throwers. Brazil, no throwers, essentially. Not many English speakers, though. Sort of hard unless you understand Portuguese. Maybe if you understand Portuguese, Brazil is S tier, and West Europe is A tier, but I don't, so I'm going to leave it in A. North Europe, easy racism. Plenty of English speakers. A handful of other throwers. It's definitely being held back from being in the S tier by not being as funny and still having throwers. West US and South Central US B tier. I literally only put South Central US in here because of the Mexicans and the fact there's a handful of less throwers than Central. West US is okay, has throwers, but everyone speaks English again, so it's a lot easier to meme around. Central US has a bunch of throwers, not one of the better US servers. East US D tier, very, very cursed server. Very, very cursed. Definitely would only recommend, because it's funny to see a whole heck load of other throwers in your game. If you don't really care about chasing a low MMR score or some shit like that, and you just want to throw casually, this is definitely a good server to throw on. But you know, I'm chasing a low number. So F tier, all of the Asian servers, they sort of stink, and almost no one speaks English. So like, what's even the point? They might be epic if you speak Chinese, but I do not. So as far as I can tell, these are all bad. And then dead servers, Africa and Australia. No one's in copper on those servers. I'm assuming the people in Africa are too busy PvPing in real life, and I don't know what's going on over there. In Australia, I have no idea. They all probably have their keyboards upside down or something. Yeah, something I noticed was that on every single server, they have racism. It's pretty awesome. Like, well, some coming from me, obviously, but a lot of it comes from them. Like, I thought that was something spectacular. They also all use various English words. Like, TK just seems to be universal. Like, even on the Japan server, I see people using TK in the middle of their Japanese or whatever the heck. They say something in Japanese, and TK is just a word that's in their language. Troll is pervasive too. Everybody uses the word troll. I had a fun time playing on every server except for these bottom 6. Obviously, that was not a fun time. But the other ones are all good. They're all fine.